My name is Derek Halbrook, and I'm 35 years old. I work as an investment advisor in Manhattan, managing portfolios for high-net-worth clients. I've built a solid reputation over the past decade, turning modest investments into substantial wealth for people who trusted me with their financial futures. My life was structured, predictable, and successful by every measure that mattered to me. 2 weeks before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, everything I thought I knew about the woman I loved came crashing down. Annalise Granger was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. At 32, she had this effortless elegance that turned heads when we walked into restaurants in Soho or attended charity galas in the Upper East Side. She worked as a marketing consultant for boutique firms, spoke fluent French, and had this way of making everyone around her feel important. My mother adored her. My business partners' wives constantly praised how lucky I was to have found someone so refined and genuine. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. We'd been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months. The wedding was planned for a Saturday afternoon at the Plaza Hotel, with 200 guests expected. I'd already transferred $50,000 for the final payments. The honeymoon suite in Maui was booked. Everything was perfect, or so I believed. That Tuesday morning in early March, I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when my assistant buzzed me. "There's a Graham Delaney here to see you," she said. "He says it's urgent and personal." I knew the name. Graham was Annalise's ex-boyfriend from college, someone she'd dated for 2 years before we met. She'd mentioned him occasionally, always in passing, always with the dismissive tone people use when discussing ancient history that no longer matters. Graham walked into my office looking like he hadn't slept in days. He was roughly my age, maybe a year younger, wearing a rumpled button-down shirt and carrying the kind of nervous energy that immediately put me on edge. His hands shook slightly as he sat down across from my desk. "I need to tell you something about Annalise," he said without any preamble. "Something you deserve to know before Saturday." I leaned back in my chair, already irritated. If this is some attempt to cause drama before my wedding, you can save your breath and leave. "She's been sleeping with me," he said quietly. "Last weekend, 3 weeks ago. It's been going on since January." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of negotiating deals and managing client crises had taught me never to show my cards immediately. "That's a serious accusation, Graham. And frankly, it sounds like something a bitter ex would make up." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. "I wish it were a lie," he said. "But I have proof." Graham's hands trembled as he scrolled through his phone. The screen displayed a series of text messages, and even from across my desk, I could see Annalise's contact photo. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to remain calm. "Show me," I said. He turned the phone toward me and I read the messages from the previous week. Annalise had written, "Derek's at his client dinner until late. Can you come over?" Graham's response, "Are you sure about this? The wedding is so close." Her reply, "I need to see you. I can't stop thinking about what we talked about." I studied the timestamps. Monday night, the previous week. I remembered that evening clearly. I'd been at 11 Madison Park with the Rothschild family discussing their estate planning. The dinner had run until nearly midnight. I'd texted Annalise around 10:30 to let her know I'd be late, and she'd responded with understanding and heart emojis. "Keep scrolling," Graham said. More messages appeared. Conversations dating back to January, right after New Year's. They'd reconnected at a mutual friend's party in Brooklyn, something Annalise had mentioned casually when she came home that night. What she hadn't mentioned were the messages that started the next day. In one particularly damning exchange from February, she'd written, "I love you, Graham. I never stopped loving you. But Derek is the better choice for my future. He can give me the life I want." Graham had responded, "Then why are we doing this?" Her answer made my blood run cold. "Because I can have both the security and the love, just until after the wedding." I handed the phone back to Graham, my mind racing. "These could be fabricated," I said, though even as I spoke I recognized Annalise's writing style, her particular way of using punctuation. "There's more," Graham said. He swiped to his voice recordings app. "I started recording our conversations after she told me about her plan. I needed to protect myself." He played the first recording. Annalise's voice filled my office, clear and unmistakable. "Derek thinks I'm this perfect woman, but he doesn't really know me. He knows the version of me that his social circle wants to see. You know the real me, Graham. You always have." Graham's voice responded, "Then why marry him?" "Because," Annalise said with a laugh that I'd heard thousands of times, "he's worth multiple millions and you're a struggling photographer in Brooklyn. I'm 32, not 22. I need security, but I also need you." I sat in silence as Graham played 2 more recordings. In each one, Annalise detailed her strategy with cold precision. She planned to maintain her affair with Graham even after our marriage. She viewed our relationship as a business arrangement wrapped in romance. She'd calculated exactly how much money she'd have access to as my wife, discussed which of my assets would become marital property, subject to equitable distribution under New York law. When the recordings ended, Graham looked at me with something approaching pity. "I'm sorry, Derek. I really am. But I couldn't let you walk into this blind." "Why now?" I asked. "Why tell me this 2 weeks before the wedding?" "Because she's planning to end things with me after the honeymoon," he said. "She told me last weekend that our arrangement would have to stop once she was officially Mrs. Halbrook. She wanted one last month together before she committed to her investment, as she called it." I stared out the window at the Manhattan skyline, processing everything I'd heard. The woman I'd planned to spend my life with viewed our relationship as a stock portfolio. She'd calculated the return on investment of marrying me while maintaining her emotional hedge fund on the side. "What do you want from me?" I asked Graham. "Nothing," he said, standing up. "I just thought you deserved to know who you're really marrying." After he left, I sat alone in my office for 3 hours. I could have called Annalise immediately, confronted her with the evidence, ended everything with a dramatic scene. But something stopped me. Maybe it was my years in finance, where emotional decisions often led to catastrophic losses. Maybe it was simple pride. Or maybe it was the realization that if Annalise could orchestrate such an elaborate deception, she deserved a response that matched her level of calculation. I decided to investigate further before making any moves. That evening I went home to our shared apartment on the Upper West Side and acted like nothing had changed. Annalise was in the kitchen, preparing her usual Tuesday night salmon with quinoa, humming softly while she cooked. She looked up when I walked in, gave me that radiant smile that had captivated me 3 years earlier, and asked about my day. "Busy," I said, kissing her cheek. "Client meetings ran long." "Poor baby," she said, running her fingers through my hair. "Only 10 more days and then we'll be in Maui. Just you and me and no work for 2 whole weeks." I watched her move around the kitchen, noting details I'd never paid attention to before. The way she checked her phone every few minutes, how she'd positioned it face down on the counter, something she'd never done previously. The slight tension in her shoulders when I mentioned potentially working late the next evening. Over the next week and a half, I conducted my investigation with the same methodical approach I used for due diligence on major investments. I hired a private investigator recommended by one of my attorney friends, a former NYPD detective named Rita Santos, who specialized in matrimonial cases. Rita's initial report confirmed everything Graham had told me and more. She documented Annalise entering Graham's apartment building in Chelsea on multiple occasions over the past weeks, staying for several hours each time. The most recent visit was just days before Graham came to see me. But Rita's investigation revealed something even more disturbing. Annalise had been researching New York's equitable distribution laws, downloading articles about spousal rights to retirement accounts and business assets. She'd even consulted with a divorce attorney in January, just 2 weeks after Graham had re-entered her life. "She's been planning this marriage like a hostile takeover," Rita explained during our meeting in a diner near Wall Street. "She knows exactly what she'll be entitled to if things don't work out. She's treating you like a diversified investment portfolio." The final piece of evidence came from Graham himself. A few days before the rehearsal dinner, he called my office and asked to meet again. This time, he brought printed screenshots of financial documents Annalise had sent him, including copies of my investment statements and details about my stake in the advisory firm. "She wanted me to see how much money was involved," Graham said. "She kept saying she was doing this for both of us, that once she had access to your accounts, she could help me start my photography business properly. I realized then that Annalise hadn't just been unfaithful. She'd been conducting corporate espionage on our relationship. She'd systematically gathered intelligence about my financial position, legal vulnerabilities, and business interests. She'd turned our engagement into a reconnaissance mission. That night, I made my decision. I could have simply called off the wedding, exposed her privately, and moved on with my life. But Annalise had spent 3 years building her reputation as the perfect fiancée, the woman everyone admired and envied. She'd cultivated relationships with my family, my friends, my business associates, all while planning to exploit the trust they'd placed in her. She deserved to face the same audience she'd been performing for. I spent the weekend creating a presentation. Using my skills in financial analysis and client presentations, I compiled all the evidence into a comprehensive file. Screenshots of the text messages, audio clips from the recordings, photographs from Rita's surveillance, copies of the legal research Annalise had conducted. Everything was time-stamped, verified, and organized into a narrative that would be impossible to deny or dismiss. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for Friday evening at the Rainbow Room in Rockefeller Center. Both families would be there, along with the wedding party and close friends. 53 people total, all gathered to celebrate what they believed was a love story. I arranged for the venue's audio-visual team to set up a large screen for what I told them would be a surprise slideshow of our relationship. The presentation was loaded onto my laptop, ready to be displayed at the moment I chose. On Friday morning, Annalise woke up excited about the evening ahead. She spent hours getting ready, choosing the perfect dress for what she kept calling our last night as an engaged couple. "I can't believe tomorrow is finally the day," she said, adjusting her earrings in the bedroom mirror. "It's going to be unforgettable," I replied. She had no idea how right I was. The Rainbow Room was spectacular that Friday evening. The Manhattan skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and our families mingled over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. Annalise moved through the crowd like she was born for this moment, accepting compliments on her dress, laughing at her father's jokes, and charming my business partners with her perfect hostess routine. My mother pulled me aside near the bar. "You're so lucky, Derek," she said, watching Annalise pose for photos with the bridesmaids. "She's absolutely radiant. I've never seen you this happy." "Tonight's going to be very memorable," I told her. At 8 o'clock, the restaurant manager dimmed the lights and asked everyone to take their seats for dinner and toasts. I'd arranged to speak first, before the traditional round of embarrassing stories from groomsmen and tearful speeches from parents. I stood up, champagne glass in hand, and looked around the room at all the faces I'd known for years. Annalise beamed at me from her seat, her engagement ring catching the light as she raised her own glass. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began. "Annalise and I are incredibly grateful to have your love and support as we start this new chapter of our lives together." Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. Annalise blew me a kiss. I've learned a lot about love over the past 3 years, I continued. I've learned about trust, commitment, and the importance of really knowing the person you're planning to spend your life with. I paused, meeting Annalise's eyes across the room. Her smile faltered slightly, sensing something in my tone. I've also learned that sometimes the people closest to us aren't quite who we think they are. Sometimes the person wearing the white dress has been living a completely different life than the one we thought we were sharing. The room grew quiet. A few people exchanged confused glances. So tonight, instead of just talking about love, I want to show you what I've discovered about honesty. I nodded to the audiovisual technician, and the large screen behind me flickered to life. The first slide showed Annalise's text message to Graham. "Derek's at his client dinner until late. Can you come over?" The timestamp was clearly visible, along with her contact information. Gasps echoed through the room. Annalise's face went white. These messages were sent last week while I was having dinner with the Rothschild family, discussing their estate planning, I said calmly. The next slide showed her message about loving Graham but choosing me for financial security. Then came the recording, her voice crystal clear through the restaurant's sound system. "Derek thinks I'm this perfect woman, but he doesn't really know me. He knows the version of me that his social circle wants to see." Annalise stood up abruptly, knocking over her champagne glass. "Derek, stop this. This isn't real. Someone's manipulating." "Sit down," I said quietly, and something in my voice made her comply. The presentation continued for 12 minutes. Every text message, every recording, every piece of evidence Rita had gathered was displayed in chronological order. The room watched in stunned silence as the woman they'd all admired revealed herself to be a calculated manipulator who'd viewed our engagement as a business transaction. The final slide showed the legal research she'd conducted about divorce settlements and asset division. Annalise spent considerable time researching New York's equitable distribution laws, I explained. She knew exactly what she'd be entitled to if our marriage didn't work out. She'd even consulted with a divorce attorney in January, just 2 weeks after reconnecting with Graham. I closed the laptop and looked around the room. Annalise's parents sat frozen in their chairs, her mother's hand pressed to her mouth. My groomsmen stared at their plates. The bridesmaids looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," I said. "And I want to thank Graham Delaney for having the courage to tell me the truth about the woman I was about to marry. The wedding scheduled for tomorrow is canceled, obviously. The deposits are non-refundable, but I consider that a small price to pay for avoiding a much more expensive mistake." I picked up my jacket from the back of my chair. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," I said. "The bar's open for another hour." I walked out of the Rainbow Room and took the elevator down to street level. Behind me, I could hear the explosion of voices as 53 people tried to process what they'd just witnessed. 3 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Annalise had moved to Los Angeles. supposedly to start fresh. Graham tried to reach out to me once, but I never responded. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. I'm still single, still managing investments, still living in Manhattan. But I'm also smarter now about the difference between the person someone appears to be and the person they actually are. Sometimes the most expensive education comes from the relationships that don't work out. The $50,000 I lost on wedding deposits was the best money I ever spent. It bought me my freedom and taught me that the truth, no matter how painful, is always worth more than a beautiful lie. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment letting me know what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to receive alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.